I have to. There's a famous saying that if you're a billionaire and want to become a millionaire, get into.
Yeah, that was Richard Branson's quote. He said, the easiest way to be a millionaire is to start by being a billionaire and start an airline. India's got the potential to support an airline like this. And more importantly, I think India deserves to have an airline like this. I mean, we were very, very fortunate to have a great investor like the late Mr. Srinivas, right? That he was there to see it fruition, so he was on board our first flight.
Okay.
So we were actually very happy that he was able to see it come to light before his untimely and unfortunate demise.
Hi, welcome to Cypher 2024. We have Anand Srinivas, CIO and co-founder at Akasa. Akasa is one of the upcoming and quickly growing airline of India. Anand, with his co-founders, have started it almost 8 years back.
Wait, Akasa?
Yes.
No, Akasa has been operational for 2 years now.
Operational for 2 years.
2 years now. We started this obviously a little before that.
Okay.
But we just last August we celebrated our second anniversary of operations. For us, operations is what we mark our anniversary.
Right.
Then the PowerPoint put together, it's not really what matters. But our first flight took off in August, early August 2022.
And then when did you really start preparing for your topics? When did the PPT really start?
The PPT work started, if I'm not mistaken, 16th of August 2020.
Wow.
So I can give you a very precise date. 16th of August 2020 is when I think few of us got together and said, hey, you know what?
Tell us the story. Yeah.
Now, bunch of us were all long-time aviation professionals, right? So the aviation story in India, I think we all realized what a huge potential it had. We felt there was, and you'll hear horror stories about airlines.
Yes, there's a famous saying, and I'm sorry that I have to. There's a famous saying that if you're a billionaire and want to become a millionaire, get into.
That was Richard Branson's quote. He said, the easiest way to be a millionaire is to start by being a billionaire and start an airline. And I want to set the record straight. I fall into neither of those two categories. So I think that was a little easier for us. No, I mean, honestly speaking, we just felt there was such a huge potential for India. And India deserves a well-professional airline. I think you hear horror stories, but you look at Indigo professional, they're doing extremely well. And obviously, we see the data, we see the kind of market. We are absolutely convinced that it is possible to have a successful airline that is well professional. So this was basically a bunch of people who have long professionals in aviation, who got together and said, let's do this. And, like I said, started off with a phone call, which went into a PPT.
Okay.
Then, obviously, we had to get, we were looking for investors because, there are a few critical things are necessary for an airline. We keep talking about it. Being laser focused on cost is very important because airlines is one where cost can just, you blink and it spirals out. You are extremely professionally run, efficiently run. And of course, we've got our own, we are a service industry. So we keep talking about, it is possible to provide a great service, which doesn't necessarily have to be high cost.
Okay.
So it doesn't cost you anything to smile. It doesn't cost you anything to have a warm feeling when you board here. Which is really what we try to do. And we believe that, India has got the potential to support an airline like this. And more importantly, I think India deserves to have an airline like this. So part of that's kind of how the genesis was.
What was the story with your first investors? It would have been difficult.
Yes. Yes and no. I mean, we were very, very fortunate to have a great investor like the late Mr. Srinivas, right?
And we would like to know that's part of the story.
I share what I can, right? We met with him and we outlined saying this is the plan. And I think he was convinced about the plan and I think he was convinced about the team that we have. And he backed us 100%, right? So we're extremely grateful for that. Obviously, without that kind of backing, it's difficult to get this off the ground. And also, credibility that we got with having a marquee investor.
Yeah.
So we were extremely, extremely lucky, extremely grateful for the support. And, we are very happy that
That was a big name to be associated with.
and we were very, very happy that he was there to see fruition. So he was on board our first flight. So we were actually very happy that he was able to see it come to light before his unfortunate demise. So I mean, the pitch was basis the strength of the plan, the strength of the India story, the strength of what India can be and what aviation can be, and of course his unwavering faith in the founding team and the management.
Right. Talk to me about this. Is let's go back to that earlier question that we had. Right. It's so difficult to run an airline business, not just in India, globally.
Yes.
But whenever I go with my wife on a flight, we'll always see it packed.
Yes.
I have never ever seen a flight which is not packed. Where does that dichotomy come? Where does that thing come that it becomes loss making or
So, okay, you can pack the flight, but at what price do you pack it? If I give away tickets for ₹1, I can pack a flight, any flight, right? So there is a structure of getting the demand at the right price, and the beauty is it exists. Right? Some of it is pure discipline in terms of how you price it, how you get your strategies right, how you identify the markets, the timings, the routes. There are probably 100 things that go into this, right? And of course, the fact that you see all the flights that you travel are packed means that you're not going off to some offbeat destination. But leaving that aside, the demand supply mismatch in India is just huge, right? There is so much appetite for air travel that whatever we can put out there it gets consumed. That's a great business to be.
yeah.
The constraint is obviously infrastructure, right? Airports. I mean, the growth in India, not just in the metros, right? Look at the tier 2, tier 3 city growth.
Yes.
Bulk of our traffic comes from metro to tier 2 cities. You're flying to Lucknow, to Gorakhpur, Prayagraj.
Yeah.
10, 20 years ago, you would not have thought of these as great aviation routes, but it exists. And if you talk to people on the ground, they can you increase more services into these markets? So there's almost an insatiable demand.
Okay.
So
So when you believe that there's a demand, the constraint really is that why can't you really then price it higher?
but
Why can't you really price it higher?
no, so it's
Where's that constraint coming?
so I think multiple reasons. Right? So there's demand, but at what price point? Okay? And that's there's a huge amount of actually analytics, data driven stuff that goes into analyzing patterns, identifying viable routes, estimating hey how much price can it bear. Cost is a big factor. So I don't think it's a question of we can price it at whatever we want. I think if you look at the average airfares in India, it's some of the lowest per kilometer
Absolutely.
worldwide.
Absolutely.
I mean, a lot like telecom. Right?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
in India, we probably pay the lowest per GB data worldwide. I mean, you'll find a few examples here and there, but so the demand is there. The biggest thing is yes, you will need to have a buoyant revenue environment, but success comes from keeping your costs
Cost.
tight. Right? Efficiency in operations, utilizing your assets optimally. These are your kind of what you call operational excellence parameters that really help you be successful. Because if you're saying my cost will go out of control, but then I will let my revenue environment. That's kind of saying high tide, all rocks are hidden. Right?
Is this also an industry where the price elasticity is very high? Where you increase the price, the demand or the number of people that can take at that price point would decrease significantly.
No, nothing. I don't think it is beyond normal, right? To any other business. You have to understand that there are multiple reasons why people travel, right? And each of them have different points. Right? You have business travelers who have to get there for a meeting, their price sensitivity is very different, right? But you have a family of four that is planning their annual holiday to go to their hometown for Diwali. Now, it's not a it's a 4x price sensitivity, right? Because if it's a family of four, I have to pay for 4 tickets, right? So I think there are if you go back and look at why do people travel? Business meetings, right? Visiting what we call visiting friends and family. And then you have the pure leisure, which is completely discretionary holiday travel.
Yes.
Right? Now, each of these has a very different behavior to pricing.
Yes, sir.
Interestingly, what you will find is the family who's planning or the people who are planning their vacation, planned vacation, usually plan well in advance.
Amen.
And usually, that's why airlines price well in advance, your prices will be low and affordable. So what happens is it caters to that need as well, right? So I don't think India. The funny thing is India is such a huge market. There's no segment that can answer for every segment you have in India. We have a population that is larger than most
countries.
addressable population in most countries, right? But I to the flip side, right? You go look at. People keep saying, "Oh, price sensitive," but then you go look at the demand for premium products and services in India.
Absolutely.
It's just unsatiated, right? So I think we will be doing a gross injustice if we classify all of India as a price sensitive market. There are pockets which are price sensitive, and part of a well-run airline is to figure out how to segment it where we can cater to them, we can cater to the business travelers, we can cater to the holiday travelers, people who are visiting friends, pilgrimage. Pilgrimage travel is a big one in India, especially the older population. So there is always a segment.
Yes.
The question is, which is the segment that you are going after, and how do you kind of offer a product or a service that caters to them?
Yeah. What would be, according to you, as a co-founder and a CIO, what would be your biggest concern running specifically for you? Biggest concern which keeps you up in the night?
As CIO,
Security.
Look, we can do whatever we can on operational efficiencies. The one thing that we are always on the ball is security. So in fact, in Akasa, we keep talking about, we've got our cultural pillars, we talk about everything, but then we always talk about safety first, second, third, fourth. That's the nature of the business, right? And we look at cyber security as on par with, just regular aviation security. The difference is aviation security is heavily regulated by the DCA, but then, the government and the bodies are getting more and more involved in ensuring that we have the right level of cyber security. Because it can cripple operations. I mean, we saw that with the CrowdStrike outage. The amazing. Obviously, we had planned for resilience. We had planned for business continuity. And one of the things we are extremely proud of Akasa is, despite that, we didn't cancel a single flight because we had some kind of resiliency plans in place, thankfully. But the good thing is, after we saw that, we actually made a laundry list of areas for improvement. So we've been actively working on that to say, okay, because I keep telling people, it is not a question of if it will happen again, it's a question of when it will happen again. Maybe not the same thing, but there will be something equal. Right? So if you ask me as a CIO, and actually it doesn't have to do with an airline, any CIO, the one thing that should be first and foremost on their mind is security. Is there, right? And I don't think that's security.
As a CIO, again, same question. How much does the data and analytics, and I know for a fact, given that I know you for years now, probably even before you started Akasa, that you have a very, very strong data and analytics background. And I know you have written books, and I have that book with me, autographed, still with me. And I believe you are among the first data and analytics professional worldwide. You started working in data analytics maybe in 90s.
Quite some time back.
Okay, let's talk about that journey.
So it's a funny story, right? So I started off in aviation. I was with Cypher. I was working as a data scientist or a decision scientist, as we call it then. This was in the late 90s. Did that, so I was building, algorithms for fleet optimization, pricing, revenue management, what have you. At one point, I moved away from aviation. Spent some time with Dell, and then ran my own startup for a bit. Then aviation is like this habit you can't kick, right? Once it's in your blood, it's in your blood. So when the opportunity came again to get back in, it was one of those, let's do this. So the one thing we keep talking about in Akasa, right, is how important data and analytics is for everything that we do. In fact, we've got this one which on one of our meeting rooms we have written it on the wall. It says, in God we trust. Everybody else bring data.
Yeah.
Right. So we have tried to drive a data-driven culture from day one. Right. So sometimes we look at it, and if you look at what makes up a good data-driven enterprise, right? Having systems, and we had advantage of being fully digitally gone, so we could put this in place. So, in fact, when we drove the plans, we actually, everybody talks about, oh, I need this system and that system. We had a data lake and a data infrastructure plan from day one. So, which means that as and when we brought on systems for our operations, it was built to integrate with our data. So we've got some phenomenal amount of work that we're doing from the data side of things. Just in our ability to personalize what we offer to the customers, in our ability to engage with our customers better, stuff we can do in real time. And we're constantly how shall I put it, trying to innovate on this and say how can we push the envelope further. So what you add, no, that's one side. This is the customer facing side, and then of course we've got a huge amount of data that goes underneath the like the iceberg, right? The stuff that goes below, which keeps our operations humming efficiently. How do we optimally utilize our assets, our crew, rostering? So there's no area of the business that is not touched by data analytics. I always maintain that, we've spoken about this. Airlines have always been the poster child for using data. So we've kind of embraced that.
Yes.
And our objective is to say, from a data analytics perspective, our benchmark is the best of the best worldwide. So we are looking at what does data do, so we kind of benchmark ourselves to those kind of standards because it's a global space. I mean, you can't be happy being saying, no, I'm the best in this little, in Whitefield I have the best data analytics program or something like that. So the data and analytics portion of it, we have tried to push it, embed it into our business process from day one. And of course, the infrastructure that needs to be set up was put in place day one, and we are constantly building on top of that in terms of additional support.
Got it. Last question. Give us some interesting incidents that happened, maybe for our audience, that this is how behind the scene of an airline would work. Anything in which you would want. Maybe something which scared you off, which is like, okay, aaj to ho gaya, ab ho gaya. Like this is
No,
still.
so I agree with this, right? One thing in aviation is when you come home and you meet your wife or your spouse, and they ask you how was your day, you will never say, yeah, same as yesterday. There's always something different, right? Mostly good. Sometimes, it's very. So there are lots of incidents, and I don't want to pinpoint incidents because that, some of these things would not be appropriate to share publicly. But take the example of the crowd strike, right? I mean, I think that's something that it was not internal to the airline. Everybody knew and everybody was dealing with it. And I was at the airport. I was flying that day. I was flying from Mumbai to Bangalore. Just when that happened, I mean, the instant realization. Oh my God, this is going to be. I mean, you kind of knew, right? And everybody's scrambling. So thankfully we had our process. Quick, initiate protocols. So the amazing thing is we've got procedures and protocols for everything.
Yes.
So we are planners, right? I mean, by definition, right? So you plan, and you plan, and you plan, and you plan. And so we had protocols in place. So effectively, what it meant was the moment we saw this, effectively, just one person picks up the phone and say, "We are switching over to Plan B.
We have taken.
So we need to do this. We already have it in place. So it was written on. You will call so and so, or this department will provide you this, and this is what you will have to do." And it went in. Now, obviously, we could not keep the schedule on time. Simply because think about it this way, right? Systems are down. I have to board 185 passengers onto an aircraft. Today, you scan the boarding pass, it validates it, they go through. When you're doing it manually, unit operations go from 1 second to 5 seconds. You just add that up. You're not able to.
Okay.
Amazing.
It 5 times.
Yeah, straight away, it takes time. But the fact is that we had all the passengers were booked. We had their information. We could validate them because because one of the biggest things you have to do is after the passengers board, you have to reconcile the passengers on board with whoever is there because you can't have a unauthorized soul on board, right? And that's a very, very important safety regulation. We didn't miss a beat. We had the system, and obviously the frontline team just stood up. So to me, that's something that we feel very proud of what our team is able to do. Yes, we gave them the capability, but ultimately it was the people on the ground that were doing it, right? So, and then you go back and you say, you know what, that was really bad. But two things happened. We were very happy with how we had handled it, and two, more importantly, I had the next day, we had a laundry list of, hey, maybe we can do something here, maybe we can do something here, maybe we can do something here. And by the way, some of them are already in place, right? So we'll be better prepared. Of course, when it bites you, it's going to come back with something that you had not anticipated. But the amazing thing about planning, right? The more you plan, the luckier you get.
Yeah.
So, so we keep planning, and then look at resiliency. We study this, and we keep thinking, what can we do better? So, setting up processes. So it's fun.
Yeah.
Right? So when we talk about incidents that scare you, no, we don't scare easily. Because as long as you plan for something, it doesn't scare you much. But like I said, come home, meet your wife at the end of the day. You will never ever say, oh yeah, today is same as yesterday. Never. That's just the one amazing thing that makes you want more. Right?
Finally, Anand, I know you have been coming to Cypher almost every day.
My pleasure, right? I think pretty much from the first one, right? I think I've been active here. It's just amazing to see how it's grown, right? I remember the small gatherings we used to have. We could fit it into a small, I think one hall like this. Just amazing. And like I said, right, I love coming here because there's always something to learn. Right? Happy to contribute when I can. But for instance, I was sitting. I went through. There was a couple of talks that were very interesting. Just to see how people are doing it, because the day you think, oh, I've got it all covered, I think you already lost the game. So it's wonderful to see this. My only dream, I've told you this, is that the usual people that I used to see, they don't seem to be here anymore. So I seem to be the only old guard that seems to be there. So you should probably start calling some of our old colleagues and say, you guys should come. Call them the grand old men of Cypher or something, or Bill for that matter. I don't know, any will take offense if I say so. But no, so it's always been my pleasure. More power to you. I think you guys have done a wonderful job.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure.
Thanks a lot.
Always.